Okay, the Koenig Board of Zoning Appeals for April 22nd, 2023 is now in order. To begin with, I'd like to take an opportunity to welcome our new member. We have Mr. Thomas James, who's representing District Number 4, and he's a newly appointed member and joining us this evening. Welcome aboard. Second item, we have an item on the agenda, item number 2, that was inadvertently placed on the agenda, and I would like a motion, if we could have it, to remove that item.
So move.
Second.
And do we have any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, next item, we have the approval of the minutes of 4/24/2023. Is it
522.
I'm sorry, is it, which one is it, James? Is it 4/24 or is it 5/22?
522.
Okay. And, approval of minutes for the meeting on 5/22/2023. We have a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes of 5/22/23.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we have just a brief statement about the rules and procedures that we go through here at the BZA. The applicants will provide a presentation about the needs for the variance for 5 minutes, with the chairman having the unilateral ability to grant more time as needed. Staff will address any additional issues as a second point, and then we have citizen comments, and we allow for 5 minutes on the citizen comments. And what we would ask, if we could, is your indulgence. If there's somebody has said something and has made your point, we'd appreciate it if you don't come just other than maybe say you agree with what they're doing or whatever, for the sake of time, so that we can move the meeting along. So we would appreciate that if you'd follow that. And then there's a time after that for applicant rebuttal and questions from the board members. And then once we start our deliberations on it, then there's no further input from the audience. It'll be just the board discussing the matter at that point, unless a board member should have a question that they might want to address to the applicant or whatever. So with that, the first item on the agenda tonight is a variance application number VA 23000011. Scott Wall is requesting a variance from the minimum width requirement under the density and lot size relation of the Lake Residential Zoning District, TMS 177-00-01-022, with the nearest address of 121 Waters Edge Lane, West Union, South Carolina. Would the applicant please step forward and make their presentation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I appreciate y'all's time. This will be brief. My name's Scott Wall, and this is, in case you didn't this is Boyce Dunn. He's owner of Southern Creek Construction, and he'll be the builder on our house when we're able to get started at some point in the future here. But the reason I'm here is we are just asking for some relief from the 80-foot minimum width requirement rule. On our lot is very narrow at Waters Edge subdivision at the front by the street, and then it goes and then it fans out, nicely at the bottom. The issue really is one of which you have to go so far down the lot to get to 80 feet that and then when you couple that, because it's pinching us in the middle, right? So the setback from the lake coming up, and then with the septic drain field, if we have to incorporate the 80-foot minimum, then it's going to it's almost gonna make the lot unbuildable because it's gonna squeeze us so much right in the middle. We submitted this, the site survey, and, you know, and that's the proposed, sorry, glasses on and off here to see. You can see the proposed layout of the house. And, you know, we're working within the HOA setbacks and everything. It's just, you know, this 40 feet is what's getting us here. And so, you know, I don't feel, you know, we're not doing anything other than building a residential home on the land, so we're not trying to alter it in any way. I feel, you know, I feel that it's not detrimental to the neighborhood in any way. We're going to build a nice home to when we finally retire. We drove up from Charleston today. We're going to live here. This is going to be a permanent home. This isn't like a second home or anything. So we're going to want to come back this way to live. So, you know, I feel like it's in keeping with really the way the rest of the lots and the homes on the lots are. I didn't submit this because I wasn't really sure what all we needed. If anybody thinks it's beneficial, this is kind of off the Oconee County site. Shows our lot and the adjacent lots, and you can kind of see from this, if anyone wants to look at it, how ours is kind of narrow. But, you know, there are other homes, it appears to me, that, you know, maybe suffered at some point from the same thing that are built. You know, I did a little mapping, and some of these homes here appears to be about 65 feet wide where they're set back from at the beginning of their home. So, you know, I can't see where it's you know, it's hurting anybody or is a detriment to the neighborhood. We're only hopefully going to enhance the neighborhood by building a nice home there. And that's kind of, you know, where we're at. I don't know if you have any questions of me.
Yeah, I do.
Sure.
What other options have you considered for building your home here? What other options do you think, have you looked at?
On that particular lot,
Yes.
I mean, it's,
Well, the main problem is the size and restrictions, well, that we got to go by, of course, from the HOA. And then also, we're running into issues where there's rocks on the lot too. So the location is kind of going to be kind of determined by that a little bit too, mainly for the septic more than the house itself. That's another thing we ran into as well.
we do have an approved septic
That's right.
system
Yes.
already by DHEC, an
And
engineered system.
Yes.
You know, we're hoping maybe at some point, if we can sort this little thing out here, to be able to go back and try for a conventional system. But really, I think for Boyce's point, I'm not sure, I mean, what the other options, you know, would be. It's going to be so narrow, you know, where the setback from the lake and the drain field is, and then with this, if we have to go the 80 feet and then do a setback off of that, I mean, it's like the house would have to be, you
And
know,
we're worried about being able to fit that type of system up into the front yard. That's kind of a consideration we've been going back and forth with different people on, is how we can get that type of system into the front yard with the way, how narrow it is and with the driveway and all that kind of stuff. I will say that, just to kind of, one other thing, that a lot of these houses that are already in place are way into the setback as it is. So it's not like this is going to be a house that's going to be forward and then everybody else is back. Even the next door neighbor, he's way into it as well. The next door neighbor is probably right at the 80-foot line. They aren't even behind it. So the house wouldn't be like way in front of anybody. It'll look uniform. I'll put it that way.
yeah, and when looking at the house that's built right next door to it, I think we kind of were looking off, I don't know how accurate exactly it is, but, you know, we were about 95 feet, say, from the street, and where our house is proposed is about 125, 127. So we're not trying to push anybody, crowd anybody, you know, up on the street, and we're within the HOA setback, so I feel like I feel like it's in line with the other homes that are already built. We're not trying to do something crazy out of the ordinary to, you know, looking for a variance to do something kind of wacky or anything.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered, I hope it answered your question, but.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, they said that it's within the HOA setback, so.
So that's, and, you know, I mean, if there's any other questions, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But if any of this other information, these pictures or anything are of any value at all, you're welcome to bring them here or something.
Have anything further you want to tell us?
I'm sorry?
Anything further you would like to address?
No, I don't think so at this time. We did attend the HOA meeting about 2 weeks ago, the annual HOA meeting where, we got to meet some people and at that point, I stood up and told everybody what we were trying to do. That I know they'd seen the sign, I guess, and let them know if there was any questions or concerns, please come see me after the meeting. There may be some people with some concerns at that point, after the meeting and everything, or during the meeting, nobody addressed any. Not saying there aren't any, but, so we've tried to do our due diligence in this, and so, anyway, I appreciate y'all's time.
Please have your seat.
Thank you. Thank you.
James, do you have any comments or any?
It's pretty standard setback variance. Obviously, the lake overlay does have a minimum width requirement, so it does require the lot to reach that 80 foot before the setback starts. This is consistent with requests on narrow lots in the past. And happy to answer any type of questions you guys have.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Now, nobody has signed up to comment from the audience, but if there is anybody who would like to say something, we'll give you an opportunity to say your piece. If not, then we'll start our deliberations. Okay. Okay, let's. Do we have any thoughts or comments that you would like to make?
Well, it seems, the fact that, as we all have stated, they're within their own HOA, that's a big advantage. And the fact that there's other homes that are a similar distance, and given the fact of the type of lot that they have, it seems like it's a reasonable request.
If you look at the GPS map that the county has on the county site, it looks as though this one here is pretty well parallel with what the adjacent lot is, so looks reasonable from that standpoint. Anybody, Tim, Gwen, anybody?
No, let's move.
Okay, let's go through our questions. Okay. Is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and consistent with the spirit, purposes, and the intent and specific requirements of this chapter to include the definition and intent of the district in which a special exception. I think,
It's not special, it's a variance.
yeah, this one here,
Yeah, I see that.
I need, this is since April 24th.
I think I printed it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start. Just use that one. So, right here.
Excuse us. Okay, we'll start all over again here. The first one. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Do we have a motion in
So
the
moved.
affirmative?
So moved
Do
from,
we have a second? Second. Do we have any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Okay, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Do we have a motion in the affirmative?
so moved.
Second? Somebody? Huh? Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor? Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Could we have a motion in the affirmative?
So move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Aye. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by granting of the variance. Do I have a motion in the affirmative?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? No. Okay. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? If none, all in favor? Give your variance.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The next item that we have on the agenda is a variance application number VA 23-000010. Brian Wood of AR Thorpe PLLC is requesting a 12-foot height variance and a 62 square foot variance for a freestanding sign and up to a 400 square foot variance to the building mounted signage. TMS number 222-00-01-008 with an address of 1810 Sandifer Boulevard, Seneca, South Carolina, 29678. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Yes,
Make your presentation?
absolutely. Thank you. My name is Randy Smith. I'm here in place of Brian, who could not be here. Obviously, like you stated, the property is at 1810 Sandifer Boulevard. Thank you. And we're requesting, a few different variances, like you had mentioned, from the existing sign variance, which is 20 feet to 32 feet, and from 200 to 262. And then we also, I might add that the reason we're asking for some of these are the setback from the buildings that we've shown on the plan. Most of the buildings are about 750 feet from Highway 123. Yeah, 750 feet from Highway 123 in Sandifer. And then our road frontage we have is 2,270 feet of road frontage and 148 acres. We also have 3 existing billboards that are on the property. They're month to month, that once we start construction, those will go away. The height of the larger sign from Highway 123 to the top of the sign are 42 feet. So that one will go away. Well, all 3 of them will go away. That's the highest one. There's multiple ones on top of the hill. Once we do grading at some point, obviously that hill will remove. It'll be more street level and then obviously fade back into the property. That's pretty much it.
Do anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Why are these all combined together into one application? Did you consider dealing with each one independently, or are they all necessarily tied together? Yes.
They're all kind of tied together from the main monument. We went through and did the monument, and obviously the height was the 12 additional feet, and then we worked with the ordinance trying to get the square footage of the sign, and the best we could come up with was the 62 additional feet from it. And then the next section of the variance is not so much on the monument as it is the square footage on the buildings that will be 750 feet, like I was talking about, further from 123. We've added some additional square footage on some of the building signs outside of the monument.
I had a question with
sir.
regard to your site plan. It appears that your property is running about, maybe 8 to 10 feet above the street level. Do you plan to reduce that, or are you going to keep that elevation?
No, so the berm, that's what I'm saying, the berm in the front
Yes.
is gonna come down and we're gonna push the dirt. I think it balances at this point, where we're not having to import or export any dirt.
So basically, you plan to be at about street level with this?
Toward the very back of the right-hand side of the property, it's probably gonna be 8 feet, 7 or 8 feet below.
But I mean, in the front?
Yes,
In
from
the
Highway
front.
123
So
to
with-
the back, it's gonna drop from,
So where the sign's going will be down at street level?
correct, yes, sir.
You're not gonna add on top of 10 feet and then go up another
No, sir.
32 feet?
Yes, sir, for the monument, you're correct, that will be street level, but the signage, obviously, on the buildings, what I was trying to give was the perception of those will be 750 feet away, probably 6 to 8 feet lower in elevation than Highway 123. So for the additional,
But on the signs for the building, isn't 600 square feet an awful lot for a building?
it depends on the size of the building. I mean, some of the buildings we're showing on there are pretty big buildings, and the point of being that far away from Highway 123.
I mean, that would be a sign like 6 feet high by 100 feet long. in
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah, no, when you say it that way, it sounds like a big sign.
Sounds like a pretty good sign.
Yeah, it is, but with 150, almost 150 acres and 750 feet away, it kind of disappears, especially, depending on what the backdrop is behind it. But yeah, when you say it that way, it does sound like a huge sign. Correct. But yeah, once again, the existing billboards that are out there, there's 3 different sizes. The highest one on top of the hill is at 42 feet. And those will all go away. Those are all month to month, and we're planning on removing all 3 of those.
And what is the highest one?
42 feet.
42 feet.
From Highway 123. If you were standing on Highway 123.
Now, I know they're high because I've seen them.
Yeah, they're sitting on top of those, the berms, that eventually those will go away.
Anybody have any additional questions on that?
Well, in support of what you're saying, I can see the monument, but I don't know if I can see the size of the sign on the building itself as to why that's necessary. I mean, could you deal with a smaller sign on the main building?
Yeah, and not really my requirement as much as most of the tenants we're trying to, bring to the site, or that's a lot of their requirements on a national level.
Can you share with us who be able to share with us who any of the tenants are?
I don't. We're working on tenants. I don't have anybody signed up at this point. We're trying to bring folks to the site. And obviously, the more I go back to them and say, well, you can't have your sign and you can't have your typical prototype, that makes it a little more difficult to get them to the site.
And these are gonna be like 750 feet though off of the roadway, so
Yes, sir.
basically will not be seen by the roadway.
Correct, until you probably pull into the project, and then you can assess, which direction to go and where they're at.
Would you have a problem in reducing your sign at all on the front?
So the 32.
Down to maybe down to an 8-foot variance instead of a 12?
So that put me at 28 instead of 32.
You got billboards sitting out there up higher
Yeah,
than
no, I
that.
understand, but we also,
No need to-
we just had a variance recently that fell within that, and that was what we had agreed to. And
Yeah.
it's just down the street from you, it's a gas station, and I believe, isn't that the, Stop a minute, that was, we had about an 8-foot variance, and that would put you consistent with what we've already
Yeah.
approved previously.
Yeah, and my dilemma, and I was just there today, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and actually noticed that one. With that just being one tenant, I've got to pack as many in there as I possibly can, especially with that being, the other subsequent signs that may be up and down are going to be either blades or will be at the ordinance height. That one, I got to try to cram as many tenants on there, and the shorter I make it, you start losing
How many
tenants.
tenants do you expect to have?
If you include small shops and everything, so 25, 30. So, the shorter it is, the more it's just, it's not even worth putting them on there, you can't see it.
Large development then.
Correct. That's what we're shooting for. I have nobody signed at this point. It's
On the
all a pipe dream.
monument, all these 25 tenants would all be listed on the monument as well?
No, sir, no, they would not. And there would be just some of the larger tenants would be on it.
But all of them would be listed on the bigger sign that's on next to the building?
No.
Oh, no.
No, we couldn't even get them on all of
Each property would
that.
have its own sign.
Uh,
Yeah, so the out parcels would have blades, which would be, your typical 3-4 feet off of the ground. And then the major tenants would be on the monument sign. And then a lot of your small shop tenants will not have any signage out on the street. There's just too many of them. You got a bunch of 1,200 square foot tenants, there's just no possibility to. It's usually the larger main tenants that go on the big monument, unfortunately.
Do we have any other questions? Anybody think of anything? Okay. Very good, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your presentation.
Yes, sir.
If you
Thank
Please
you.
have a seat.
Thank you.
Could Lane Price? Please come up.
Thanks for letting me speak. I'm Lane Price. The only thing, and this is kind of in general, because I know, just from what I know about the sign ordinances, and that the county council's gone into a lot of work about the ordinance, and there's been some votes and things like that. And the thing I would say is that we just have to be extra careful about the precedent that we set. Because of, if this was a mile down the road and we're allowing variances, and then it's across the street from a neighborhood, and we say, well, that person can't do it, then that's the only thing I would say. Just totally from a legal standpoint, do we pigeonhole ourselves to the point that we say, well, by allowing this person to do it, then they're gonna say, well, you let him do it, let me do it, and then we spread out to the point that we've got sign variances, large sign variances everywhere, and then we're put in the face of neighborhoods or places that we don't want stuff like that. So that's all I would say.
Thank you. Would anybody else care to speak that's in the audience that maybe hasn't signed up? Okay. If not, then staff?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I will bring this up and show it to you guys. So they do have 2,400 square feet or linear feet of frontage, so they
Right.
would be allowed 24 separate signs if they wanted to go that way.
Right.
The group signs are limited to a total of 10, so they could have 10 tenants in this sign package. And then on the variance request for the building signage, they wrote the request a little bit differently than it was presented, so they requested not to exceed 15% of the total building, face, which they took from the appendix A, and it's not to exceed the 600. So if it's a smaller building, it's still gonna be limited to no more than 15%, not to exceed that 600. So I do think that is kind of relevant as well in what was requested. And happy to answer any additional questions from you guys as well.
So what you're saying is that the 15% applies,
That's how they wrote the request
Right.
for the variance.
right, and that in the larger ones, it would be 15%, but it would go, even if the 15% made it a larger sign, it would be less.
Well, it would be limited to 600. square
600.
feet, no matter what size that building was. So that main store, it would be no more than 600 on that, because I'm assuming that storefront is going to be considerably larger than it looks on that plan.
Do we have any comments?
Well, I'm
Amongst
I'm still a little concerned. In terms of the actual variances that we're about to vote on, describe to me one more time what those variances are that,
So the first request is for the sign height.
Right.
They requested to go from 20 feet to 32 feet, so it's a 12-foot
12-foot variance.
on total height. The second request is for the total square footage of the face of that monument sign. So under the group signage, they're allowed up to 200 square feet. They're asking for 262 square feet. So it's a 62-foot addition to that total face on the monument. The third was for the building signage. So the building signage was requested to be up to 15% of that building face, not to exceed the 600 total square feet. And then the fourth is also part of that building signage, and it was to allow more than one sign on the building, still within the limits that are under that 15%. So there's two for the monument sign and then two for the building sign.
Are we gonna do it individually, or we're gonna do the whole, all of them?
You're welcome to proceed.
Whichever way.
Chairman's whatever.
Whatever way the board would like to handle it.
Well, to be consistent with what we did down the road with the stop a minute, the same thing that James says is that, you know, they can put into a bunch of individual signs out there. And this group decided it would be better to give the variance, to have one that looks good. And I say this applies to that too, rather than having 20 different signs down there, that you have something that looks nice and all. I think it'll be an improvement to the area. Particularly, you take those billboards out from up there. They're gone. There's 3 of them that we don't have to worry about in the county.
I think that's a good trade-off.
Yeah.
I think that's an
Very good
excellent trade-off to.
Absolutely.
yeah.
But to the point is, I don't think we're really, because down the road, you weren't talking about this many buildings, you're talking about one building. You know, so, but they could have done different ones too, and it would have not looked good.
No.
So I think for the aesthetics and all, this is much
I
better.
also
than what's
think the fact that they're lowering that berm to get it down, puts it down, had it been on top of the berm, then I think it would have been a whole different matter. But I agree with you that the removal of those billboards, I think, is a big issue for the
Be
county.
good for the
I think
county.
it cleans a lot of that area up, and
Yeah.
it places one fairly attractive sign in
Yeah.
its place.
Yeah, bring some more business there too. That's good.
Anybody have anything further they want to, any other questions or
I would just
anything?
suggest that we deal with all 3 together.
I-
4,
I
it's
think-
4.
Yeah.
Four
There's
all
4, right?
together.
Yeah. I agree.
Great.
Yeah.
Very good then. Okay, then let's start with our questions. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. They have a motion in the affirmative.
So move. Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion on this? We pretty much covered the subject. Very good then. All in favor? These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Can we have a motion in the affirmative, please?
So move.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Could we have a motion in the affirmative?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion, then all in favor? Aye. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Could we have a motion in the affirmative?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? With no discussion, all in favor? All right. Okay, based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Motion, okay, you have your variance. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that one? No? Okay,
Good deal.
none, then